What's up, everybody? We got a late start today because we got chaos, which is why we're here on Sitrep, October 7th, episode 36. We're talking about God in the chaos. And I got Ducky, my boy Ian. You got two Ians this week on the same camera because we are we're doing Sukkot together. So I hope you guys are doing Sukkot. We're going to tell you some stories about our crazy Sukkot. And yeah, you see DJ Sampson. That's Aaron in the chat, but he's not in the studio. And there's a good reason for that. We had a chainsaw accident at Sukkot. And it's not Aaron, though. It's another guy that was here. Cut his leg pretty bad. So prayers are appreciated for sure. But Aaron's going to try to jump in later, but he's still at the hospital with this guy. So, yeah, we've had a crazy week, dude, and it's only halfway.
Yeah.
Right?
We got a little bit of time left. Yeah.
Can you guys hear us okay? Let me know in the chat if it's coming through all right. But we've had lots of awesome discussions around the fire this week. And when we were looking for a topic to talk about this week on the show, we've been talking about judges a lot. And we thought we'd just run through some of the stuff that we were kind of discussing and some cool stories from the book of Judges and how it relates to what we're going through right now. And
this is loud and clear.
Yeah, good. It's loud and clear. Thanks a lot. Hey, what's up, Kevin? Hey, Kelly.
That's a military term. Loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Lima Charlie.
That's right. They know what's up. This is Sitrep. But yeah. So Ian, for those people on here that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about who you are, man, so people can get to know you real quick.
Tell them about myself.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you're looking for on that. I've been born again since March 5th of 2014. I got a wife and two kids. What else do you want from me on this?
Dude, come on. Listen. So he is co-host.
Oh, yeah.
Of the show.
I haven't gotten fired or anything like that. I just haven't been present for Disputed Lands, which if you're not familiar with Chad Schaefer, you need to be familiar with Chad Schaefer and the stuff he's done. He's got an amazing book out there. Disputed Lands has a lot of shows, a lot of interviews, a lot of discussions. Yeah. I did, though. This is true. I did. I made something like 100 videos on Facebook like 6 years ago. That's been one of the ongoing jokes this week. We talk about topics, and I say, well, I did a video about that about 5 to 6 years ago on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm loving the shirt too, man. 2 weeks ago, we did a show on Jonah. So if you haven't seen that, go back and download the podcast or catch one of the videos on YouTube. I know you guys, we have some carryover from Take on the World TV. That's where you can find Disputed Lands. A lot of our fans are from there too. So, but Ian and I met at Take on the World conference, and I think it was 17 or 18.
18
yeah.
And 19.
Yep, 18, 19, and then
we clicked pretty quickly.
Yeah, we clicked because we're both cool dudes, and our beards got tangled together. So
there might have been some beard tangling. That might have happened.
Yeah, and we always have a good time, and so we were blessed to have a bunch of people come up to our house to do Sukkot with us this year. And Ian and his family drove down from Illinois to hang out with us in Ohio. So, and it has been very eventful.
It has been eventful. I mean, we've had a lot of stuff going on. Like you said, we've had a lot of good discussions, both theological, doctrinal views on understandings and interpretations down to personal things. I mean, there has been some divine appointments this week. There's been some conversations that were needed to happen. You know, I mean, this is what fellowship's about. This is what Sukkot's about.
Yeah.
You know, it's been amazing. It's been lovely to have time with the family. There's lots of kids running around. There's lots of land. We've had people coming and going and people coming back and things like that. It's been, I'm very, very happy to have been invited to this. I don't know why you invited me, but I'm glad you did.
I invited you because you're fun and I like you. Mm-hmm. Just kidding. I invited people I didn't like. I just gave them the wrong address. Oh, just kidding. Do you have any scriptures off the top of your head you want to pull up and talk about? Okay, let's talk about Sukkot real quick because we want to tell people why we do Sukkot. What's up with it? Because it's super cool. And if you guys aren't doing Sukkot, it's a feast day or it's a feast week. It's a celebration week. And we'll read where it's from here. Okay, well, yeah, Leviticus 23, that's usually the spot you want to go to. If you're not familiar with the feasts, I mean, you'll find scriptures about all the feast dates all throughout the Bible. You know, and this is how we see that it's applicable to even now. I mean, you see it in the second half of scriptures, and you even see it being referenced in, Zechariah 14, in terms of millennial kingdom. I mean, this is not something that has been done away with. This is not something that will be done away with. Right. But yeah, Leviticus 23 is the chapter that most people that are familiar with it go to because that's where you have the list of all the feast days with a basic summary. If you want to do a real in-depth study on it, though, you're going to want to go outside of Leviticus 23. That's a good spot to start, though. So if you're looking for Sukkot, let's see. Okay, there's Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur. Give me 1 second here. It's towards the end here. We got all night, man. We got all night. It's super fun, guys. Yeah, so verse 34 of Leviticus 23 is where it's going to start for Tabernacles, Sukkot. Right, and that's what Sukkot is. It means booth. Interesting little fact. The first time you see Sukkot mentioned in Scripture is actually Genesis 33, I think it is. Yeah. And where Jacob built sukkahs, he built booths for his cattle. And then there's some references in Exodus as well that a lot of people tend to forget. I think it's also 33 or 34 Exodus. There's a couple things in there. You want me to read? Is that what you're? Yeah, just read a little bit. Okay, all right. Okay, so Yahovah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of the 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot, for 7 days unto Yahovah. On the first day shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. 7 days, and it talks about the offerings. You want me to go into that too? That's you can skim if you want. Yeah. I would skim. Okay. These are the feasts of Yahovah, which ye shall proclaim to be a holy convocations beside the Sabbaths. I'm like picking little bits and pieces. There's a lot of things about the offerings and stuff like that, and the offerings you do by fire. Which, if you're looking into doing feasts for the first time, I would not suggest, looking too much into all that. Yeah. There's reasons why we're not participating in making offerings and things like that. That's not for now. Right. This is a Moedim, so it's just something that we're doing. We're practicing in preparation for the millennial reign. Didn't go away. Right. We don't do all the sacrifices or anything like that. But this is the week of celebration. So and it's not because we're just picking out pieces because we're practicing. Like there are actual reasons. I mean, there are statutes in place. There are ordinances in place that need to be set up, and as of right now, that's not the case. So we keep what we can, we observe what we can, we do what we can, and it's not just a matter of we do this because we're supposed to. We do this because we get to, and you learn a lot more about the scriptures, and you get to understand the heart of God a lot more by doing this. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. That's really the whole point of studying scripture. That's the whole point of seeking God. That's the whole point of prayer. That's the whole point of walking with him, getting to know him. You want to get to know his heart. Right. You get down to the verse here, 39. 15th day of the 7th month. You have wait, hold on. I had it in it's talking about because there's an 8th day. On the 8th day shall be a Sabbath as well, right? And that's the great last day. Which I think that's when we should do the burning of that thing. Yeah. I know that's what my plan was. The burning of that thing. He's referencing like a huge 40-foot fire pit that we're about to light up. We're going to find a creative way to light it up too.
Yeah, there's been some talk about some interesting things. Okay, so at the end of the last few verses here, you shall dwell in booths 7 days. This is why typically, not always, but typically, like in America, you'll have a lot of people dwelling in tents. That's what we've been doing, except for when it's like 30 degrees outside and you've got kids that are under the age of 2, then, trailers where it's not so cold. But like if you look at Israel, I mean, like Sukkot is a huge deal in Israel. I mean, they do not play around. It's awesome. You can right now, or maybe after the show, whatever. If you just type in Feast of Tabernacles or Feast of Sukkot, Sukkot, Israel, you're gonna find image upon images of all these things that people do on their rooftops, on their porches, and in their courtyards, in their backyard, right? And they build these sukkahs, and there's rabbinical traditions of what they consider kosher, so it has to be built with certain materials that the scriptures list out. It talks about the branches, and you got to understand, if I can go into that for 2 seconds.
Yeah, go for it.
You got to understand that where they were at, these branches were prevalent, right? So like we have a sukkah that one of our friends basically built all by himself because he didn't want help. And he did a wonderful job. It's really cool looking. It's gorgeous. I mean, you should get pictures of that thing. Especially since it got tossed around today before it's completely destroyed.
Well, yeah, so we had like a windstorm we built a sukkah, and then we had this windstorm, and then it blew that sucker across the yard, man. And this
thing's heavy. It's made of metal.
And it
took like 4 of us to pick it up.
Yeah, we picked it up, and then we had to chain it to 2 trees. and then we had to wire it up a little bit because it broke when it flipped. And but it's been fun. It's been fun.
No, it's been amazing. But yeah, what I was saying is if you look up, the feast in Israel, this is the time where Israel really, I mean, even your people who may not be so traditional, right? That they don't keep all the feasts. Maybe they don't go to the synagogues all the time. Maybe they're not so worried about keeping the Torah. Just like you can say with any belief system, you're going to have a good chunk that are, they identify and they do a little bit here and there. And there's going to be those that are more observant than others. But even then, like this is like your Christmas tree for the average American. Like this is something they always do. It does not matter how much you observe that feast. I didn't want the Christmas tree thing to stumble anybody on that if I clarified that. But
you're fine.
Anyways, so yeah, they built it with 4 types of tree branches and stuff like that, and you make a roof of it, and it's supposed to be open so that you can see through it, so you can see the stars. And there's a lot of speculation on that being, and this is why I wanted to go to Exodus 33, I think it is. It talks about, it uses that sentiment. Mm-hmm. There's verses in there where he's telling you, reminding the Israelites about and talking about, I allowed you to live in these booths. It is a form of provision. They were brought from Egypt into the wilderness, and one of the first things the Israelites did was murmur and complain about not being provided for, but God was providing for them. That's why we have the verses that talk about your shoes did not wear out, your clothes did not wear out. And there's those verses that talk about, and you lived in booths. Yeah. You weren't sleeping in holes.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for a minute, because let's drive this point home, because we were talking about this. And they were in the wilderness for 40 years, man. And it says that their shoes and their clothes didn't wear out. And we have a friend, Carl Tykrib, that goes out to a Burning Man festival in Nevada or in Utah. And the desert out there destroys your stuff in a matter of a week. So it's like they have to replace everything they take with them every year. Just gets destroyed in a week. So if you don't live in a desert area, I live in Ohio. Okay. We don't even know what it's like to live in a desert. I mean, if you could call Ohio barren as far as things to do.
I know a little bit.
But that's about it. But yeah, but being in the desert though, I mean, it's a harsh environment. So for someone to just lightly skim over that verse that says their shoes didn't wear out.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like, I replaced my shoes like 2-3 times a year, depending if it's work boots, it's like 3 times a year, man. So I wear them every day. Think about this though, man. That's
a good point.
It's really cool. I mean, it's just something that's there that you don't see necessarily every time you read that.
Well, the thing is it's always pumped. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. You're good.
I mean, people are always so pumped. You have a lot of sermons out there, and they have some valid points. I'm not here to tear down anybody's ministry works or anything like that, but there is this understanding of they were in the wilderness and they suffered the whole time. But I mean, they were provided for.
Right.
They were provided for. I mean, you've got the water coming out of the rock. You've got the manna from the sky. Double the amount for the day of preparation.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, everything they needed, God provided for. And he often did it in ways to where you couldn't give the credit and glory to anybody else. And he does that on purpose.
Yeah.
You know, but like I said, like in Exodus 33 and 34, you even have it here in Leviticus 23. It says, you shall dwell in booths 7 days. All that are Israelite born shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths. And that it has that sentiment. So everybody remembers and knows. You know, you were not without a house. You were not without shelter.
Right. Yep.
You know, when I brought you out of Egypt, it wasn't to just suffer and use a stone for a pillow. I don't know how he did that. You ever think about that? Every time I come to that,
I can just imagine that the guy was very tired.
Have you ever tried to sleep on a rock?
I mean, not personally, no, but I can imagine that I would. Yeah, I could probably do it.
I slept on dead pigeons once.
Yeah, I know that story. That's crazy.
Yeah. I didn't. Okay, so for anybody who's paying attention and heard that part, I did not purposely choose to sleep on dead pigeons, but I did sleep on a room of dead pigeons when I was overseas in Iraq, in the wilderness, in the desert.
In the wilderness, yeah. He's an army man. He looks like a little skater kid.
Yeah, kind of. I'll take that.
But
I won't argue that. I'm not a skater though. I don't skateboard or anything like that. I never have.
It's hard to skate when you have two peg legs.
Yeah.
You know?
Peg legs. You're gonna make somebody think I actually got some kind of. I got a Purple Heart, but not for peg legs. Okay. All right. So where do you want?
Well, hold on. I was gonna say something. I can't remember, but
sorry.
Well, no, you're fine. It said. Okay. So I want to talk about the significance of what you just said, because we talked about the reference to the children of Israel when they were removed from or pulled from slavery and brought into the wilderness, and that was how they were to remember, or that is what they were supposed to remember as they celebrate tabernacles. And we've been talking about this recently on several past shows, the fact that what we just saw this year looks a lot like that, where we've been in bondage to Egypt and Babylon. I mean, we've been in bondage. America is in bondage, man, and the church is suffering because of the lack of gospel that's being taught at the pulpit, and the lack of interest and study. And you know, it's just we're in a place of comfort, and we had a lot of busyness, right? That made us, you know, it gave us like a false paradigm to live in. We thought we were good. We're comfortable. We're living in God's provision. We take living in a free country for granted because of the comfort, and we don't acknowledge, you know, everything God's doing every day. We don't acknowledge the provision. We don't acknowledge the provision. Yeah, we got too comfortable, and then God shut everything down, and we had a Passover, and we were all in quarantine. So everybody did it, whether they liked it or not. Yeah, I mean, and it's amazing because, you know, like we mentioned before, the perspective is all that matters. And when we get God's perspective, that's when we become Joshuas, right? And we become these guys that can stand on the promise, and we go from the 10 spies with the truthful report, it was all fact-based, to the 2 with the supernatural God perspective.
The truth with faith.
Right. And, you know, we just lived through this Passover, and we're looking at it and we're like, okay. And my what I was seeing is God's been asking us to get out of our comfort zone and give up these idols that we've had in our lives that are separating us from him, because it's not him separating us. It's everything that we're doing that separates us.
Right.
And we couldn't do it. So out of grace, he removed everything for us, and we got mad at him, kind of like the children of Israel when he removed them from their slave masters, pulled them into the wilderness, and because it was a place of, you know, it was unfamiliar, and it was probably uncomfortable for a while, they got ticked, and they said they were going to kill Moses.
Yeah,
you know,
many times.
Yeah, they were mad. They were going to mob and kill this guy
because killing Moses, Aaron. Yeah. I mean,
and even when God was doing that, and you know, I think about too when he provided manna for them for 40 years. Their clothes didn't wear out, all that stuff. Why did it take them so long? You know, we always say that. We're like, man, if it was me, I'd have got it right away. But how old are you guys? It's like we've been. I personally, I'm almost 40, so I think about this like I can't imagine. But I have to come to terms with the fact that God's been trying to teach me stuff my entire life, and I still don't get it. So when you put yourself in their shoes a little bit, it is easier to understand. Like God's been providing for us every single day. Maybe it doesn't look like our shoes aren't wearing out, but we don't want for anything as long as we're following Him and listening. Right? Well, comfort looks a little different.
Even
right.
I would go as far as to say, even if you're not walking with Him, He's providing for you.
Yeah, I mean, well, you have when you have like, well, you obviously reap what you sow. So
right. Yeah. No,
you're going to have problems if you're walking the wrong path. But
for sure,
sometimes we pray for victories in areas, but we have the victory already, and we just don't see it. So it's about changing perspective and focus, and so that's what we're hoping to teach you guys a little bit, because I know I'm starting to get it, and it's exciting. It's exciting to be able to see the areas that God is moving in instead of the areas where I want God to move. To focus on the stuff, the trials and the victories that you're actually conquering is way cooler than to be distracted by the stuff that you think you need.
Right. Or how you had seen, how you envision things to go. Or what you think means.
I mean, how many times have you ever prayed for something specific and got the answer, but in a different way?
Right.
Every time. Yeah, I don't think I've ever guessed right. I suck at it.
Yeah. So you think
Yeah. And a lot of times when you get victory in an area, it makes you uncomfortable. Like the way that He gives it to you, it requires you to stretch, and it requires you to like humble yourself in a way that you didn't expect.
No. Well, none of us, I mean, not normally do you go into prayer being like, ooh, I can't wait to see how I'm going to grow out of this with uncomfort. Right, with discomfort. I can't wait to be discomfortable to learn my lesson.
Yeah.
To receive this blessing that I'm asking for, that's not going to come the way I thought, but it's going to be
it's so like much bigger when you start to work out, right? You're trying to get in shape and you start running and working out. I hate running, dude. But when you start running for a while and you get in shape, you start to see pounds drop off or whatever, inches, and then you start getting excited about it. But there was a time in my life that I was running 10 miles a day, and I hated every minute of it.
I didn't even do that in the Army.
I was working at a place where I got paid.
Right, I remember talking about that.
But yeah, it sounds kind of strange. But I mean, I would have never. I was thankful. Like when I first got the job, I was picking orders, but I got paid a bonus for how fast I picked them. So we were really trying to pick as fast as you could, and you weren't done until you got everything picked. So we didn't have like a time off, but like for the first 3 or 4, well, it's about 3 months. All I did was work all day, and I would be so wore out that I would come home and fall asleep at like 3 p.m. and wake up for work the next day. And that part sucked. That whole 3 months was like boot camp, man. I mean, it was like terrible. I was sore. I think I ate like a granola bar all day. But when I saw the victory 3 months later,
right, when you start,
I was like, dang, this is sweet. I felt good, and but then you get relaxed, and now you hypothetically gain 80 pounds in 80 pounds in 8 years,
But that's been one of the main topics that's been going around this whole week. Subtly. I mean, we've
subtly, that's a better word. Yeah. Subtly gained 80 pounds.
Yeah. I like to pay attention to patterns. A lot of times, typically, if you're ever in a conversation with somebody and the story of Jonah comes up, you're like, okay, cool. And then the next night, you're talking to somebody else about something completely different, and they bring up the story of Jonah. And you're like, okay, this is weird.
God showing you.
And then the third time, you're like, okay, snap. Yeah, this is something that I need to go back through and read. There's a reason for that. If it's not for the time and season for the body, at the very least, I'm supposed to be paying attention to this because it keeps getting brought up. And so we've had a lot of those.
Especially this
week.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of patterns. There's been a lot of topics. I mean, if we were to try to cover each one of those topics, I mean, we'd be here for 50 hours trying to go over all those topics that we've discussed this week. But one of the main themes was growing because of losing the comfort, in the sense of, distancing yourself from comfort that, like somebody in the chat room said, it is serving as only as a distraction.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a theme you can find all throughout Scripture. I mean, it's when you become uncomfortable trying to follow God that's when you start to become desperate.
Yeah.
And when you're uncomfortable, that you are. I mean, you look at fasting, right?
Yeah.
You're battling the flesh with the spirit, right? Fasting is not a comfortable thing. No, by any means, no matter what definition you have for fasting, because there's a lot of different ways that people fast, right? And they say, well, I'll fast from TV, I'll fast from that, whatever. This is
if you fast from like Snickers and you eat like 1 Snickers a week, that doesn't count as fasting. Just
right. No. Yeah. If you're going to do fasting of where you're like not eating, if you're not going to do the whole not eating food,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then it should be something that you feel convicted in, that is commonplace in your life.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Something that, and you'll get uncomfortable.
Yes, you will.
Right? And people fast for many reasons, but anybody who fasts in truth and in spirit will always say, going into it is like going to the gym for the first time, but you always receive spiritually.
Yeah. My wife, so at the beginning of this year, we did a 21-day fast, the Daniel fast, right, to start this year off. And my wife, we both were serious about it. She went hardcore serious, like she didn't eat like 3 or 4 days out of the week. And I couldn't do that. But the breakthroughs that she got was exciting for me. I mean,
I'm sure for her too.
Yeah, for her. But for me, I was like, man, my wife is cool.
Yeah.
Like, hey, add this to your prayer list for me. I'm not fasting as much as you, but yeah, he's answering you, man. But yeah, she was gung ho about it, man, and she was like, oh, I think, she didn't like starving herself, but she loved feeling close.
Yeah.
And you can definitely, when you get rid of stuff, you feel it, because it's like white noise all the time, constantly, and everything in your life is like white noise. And then when you can turn that off for a minute and just sit there, it's nice.
You're blocking out the world.
And I mean, and that's where we have to want to be and at least know how to get to that point, because most people have never tried to get to that point because they just have a lot of stuff. I mean, when you go home at night after a long day's work, so what do you want to do? You want to eat dinner, take a shower, and like sit by the TV, just chill.
Yeah.
But then that TV is just bombarding you with crap.
Yeah,
So
messages and subliminal messages.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and then when you never feel good, when you go to bed, you're like, oh god, you're like stuck in the chair. You don't feel good. You don't remember, like, I mean, the stuff you watched, it was just like blah stuff. So, I mean, change what you do, and it takes a minute. It's not. I mean, obviously, it took the Israelites 40 freaking years.
And most of them didn't get it.
Most
of them had a guy in the wilderness.
But I mean, if you really want something, man, you got to change. I tell this story before, but I used to play fantasy football, and I was into it, man. So like when football season started, I like literally shifted my priorities to fantasy football, and I would listen to podcasts. Like normally, I listen to scripture or like different people that I like to listen to, and I would change all that and listen to podcasts because I'm like making my roster all week, and it was fun. I mean, I played with my brothers and my cousins and a large group of guys. We were competitive, but I felt like God was telling me to give up that because it took too much of my time. And I didn't want to, man. I was like, there's nothing wrong with this. This is like extracurricular. I still do my study. I still do all this stuff. But to me, it was like he was saying, I want more time. I don't want just a little chunk,
Yeah.
And so when I first did it, it was like super hard because then after I did it, I felt like I did the wrong thing. I was like, guys, I'm not playing. Then I wanted to call him and be like, I was just kidding. I'm playing. Or save my spot. I might change my mind. But man, once I got like about a week or two in, the urge went away. Like the desire went away. And I'm not saying football's bad, but I just didn't watch football anymore. I haven't watched football in like 2 years. I mean, and I still like football. I got other stuff going on now, and
it's a matter of priorities.
I prioritized, and now I have so much. I have a deeper relationship. I can guarantee that, and because of that deeper relationship, I feel a closer bond, and I also am able to hear him better on things like what you were describing, how words pop up and themes and patterns and stuff, and that's exactly how God speaks to me. Is I'll be praying for something, and then stuff will pop up like a million times. And you can call it synchronicity or whatever, but I don't believe in coincidence, and I don't believe in that. I believe everything is ordered purposely by God. So when you figure out how God speaks to you, and that's a start, right? Some people don't ever know. Like they say, when you recognize how it is that he talks to you,
what he's telling you.
Yep. I mean, that's a really good place to be. It's a really cool milestone. You should write that date down.
Well, I mean, you're looking for a relationship
right
between you and God. So I mean, just like any other relationship, communication they say is key, right? If you go to like marriage couples therapy, I've never done that, but they always say that it's the key is communication,
right.
And we all know that. No matter what relationship, communication is very vital. So
we've had some communication breakdowns this week too. I mean, but we deal with it in the way, and it's better when you have community. That's what life's about. Building community, and like Sukkot is an awesome time to start that tradition and get with friends. And I believe that God puts you together with people. So like if you open up your house for Sukkot, or you guys go somewhere to meet and people show up, there are divine appointments there. And I think it's on purpose. Like people show up, people don't show up, and you're kind of bummed or whatever. But
it goes the way
it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's awesome. I think it's been super fun.
Like I said, I mean, you get time with the family, you get downtime, right? I mean, sometimes you might have work or other things, but no matter what, if you're getting some time on Sukkot, you've got some family time, and you got some time with fellowship. And like I said, we've had, I mean, before being born again, I would have never actually expected it to be this way. But this is exactly what you want Sukkot to be. I mean, we all sit down when we get a chance. I mean, there's kids running around, and you have to deal with that. But every single conversation is either about doctrine, theology, beliefs, understandings, or personal matters and spirituality connection and edification that comes with that. I mean, giving each other advice. I mean, praying over each other. This is what Sukkot is. This is
it's and then
and when you do it, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's really cool. We're having a good time.
Yeah,
I mean, we're sad. Aaron, we're sad that Aaron is not with us, man. I'm hoping he gets here soon. Man, he left for the ER. Like, what time was it? Like 5?
They said something about they might stay until it's like late, and then
I know. And I'm just bummed out that it's taken that long. Sampson.
I mean, it was a chainsaw.
You're in there, man. I sent you the link on your phone, so when you guys get in the car to come home, pop in if you can. We miss you, man. Yeah, dude, it's really cool when you get, like, I mean, Aaron and I, we always go back and forth with different theology and different things about, but when you get a third perspective and a fourth perspective, and you get this like fireside chat going on with everybody, and there's no judgment. Everybody's cool with where everybody's at. But it's really cool to hear other guys' perspective on things, because a lot of times it challenges us.
Yeah.
And we're like, I don't know if I agree with that, but it's interesting.
Now I have to consider it.
It's like really interesting, and I don't know. And then people will like say, we'll be talking about one thing, and you say, hey, that kind of reminds me of this. Is there any way that these are connected? And everybody's like, holy crap, how did we not talk about this? And then it's like really exciting because we're all trying to figure it out,
Yeah. That's one of the things I love about what I call the Take on the World crew. All the people that are associated to each other, either due to Take on the World or connected with Take on the World. That's what I call the Take on the World crew. There's disagreements all the time, but it's handled exactly what you would expect when reading like the Book of Acts. We're not talking. There's no name calling. There's no bitter walking away. Like, right. You said this. Mm-hmm. There's none of that. Simply, and then we've had those this week. We've had, well, I don't see it that way. I see it this way. And then you don't just leave it at that. You discuss why. This is exactly what it means to fellowship and discuss things. And, I mean, the scriptures talk about let a wise man show his understandings through good words. And that's what we strive to do here. And it's, like he said, perspective. That's another one of the topics that's been popping up a lot this week. Yeah. It's perspective.
Yeah. Were you going further into that? Or
Yeah, I was looking at, every time you saw me looking down, I wasn't ignoring you or shutting you out or whatever. I was trying to find that verse. He kept looking over. I get that feeling like he thought I was just like, forget this show that I've been asked to be on. No, I was looking for that verse in Exodus, what I thought was 33 or 34, and I didn't find it. But what I did find in Exodus 33 is a verse that we did discuss quite a lot. And I didn't know if you wanted to go into it or not.
I can't read from that far away.
So Moses, God speaking to Moses face to face as a man speaks unto his friend, and he turned again into the camp, but his servant Joshua, Hoshea, the son of Nun, a young man departed not out of the tabernacle.
Yeah,
and that
he abided.
Abiding, and that's a topic that's popped up how many times this week?
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I mean, so the whole perspective change, I think it comes. Like, no matter what you're doing, like study-wise, you don't get it. You can't learn perspective. You are given perspective.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Would you say that? Is it true? Like, I mean, you know of perspective, but I think the relationship goes to a level, and then you gain perspective. Like, it's a gift, like a discernment. Like he gives you a new perspective. And then you start to see things differently. I mean, and then especially when you're in a place of testing and you see that God's providing for you and meeting your needs, that trust level's built, you start to then let your guard down a little bit, and you're like, you expect him to come through, as opposed to you're worried.
Right.
If he's going to come through, you're going to try to prepare just in case he doesn't. And then you get to that place where you're like a kid, and our kids don't worry about anything.
Right.
They know we're going to go grab them and make them eat. That's,
what
I mean? Or whatever.
The kingdom of God.
Right.
As children.
As children.
And we were talking about how my daughter, when she prays for something, if she doesn't get the answer right away, she gets super confused.
Yeah.
She's like, why? Because she's used to praying for things and seeing the result right away.
Yeah.
So when it doesn't happen, if she prays for the rain to go away and it's still raining, like 5 minutes later, she's like, what is this? Seriously, because she's seen so many times where she prayed for something, she'll pray over it, and the next morning she gets the report. And she's like, yep, okay, and it's not even that big of a deal to her, because we told her, if you speak to God and you reach out to him and, you do those things, he's faithful and just. And we don't tell her that he's always going to answer the way that you expect, but like, she's got that childlike faith where it's like, I asked and he said, ask and receive. What's going on? Well,
so that's cool, because we talked about this before as well. And I think it's awesome. Every time this comes up, I think it's exciting because
they want to see your shirt.
Which Ian? There's two.
Yeah, Ians, I know. Man. He said, I need to see Ian's shirt. And it's like,
yeah, you need to be more specific. I mean, come on. I'm just kidding. I'll show you mine. It just says Lion of Judah. It's not cool.
It is cool, though.
Oh,
it's got a little image
really
of the lion.
Cool. I think your shirt's cool, too.
Yeah, the Jonah and the Ketos. That's, we got Jonah and Ketos shirts, Kevin, from the DMG 144. It's not this one, though. It's a different one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bummer you didn't get to make it, Kevin, but we completely understand, and I'm sure there was reasons, and I hope you're able to observe Sukkot with whatever.
There's next year, bro. There's next year.
Yeah.
And we're probably going to do something before that, too. So
you already got plans lined up, huh?
I don't know, man. I'm just,
God willing.
Do whatever you feel like. Who knows?
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What I was saying about the child, though, the childlike faith, because we had the same talk before. It wasn't really about prayer per se, like you're saying, but it was like the faith of, like, we were talking about my daughter in a specific. My wife and her friend were talking about problems with men. Well, it was mainly her friend. There's no problems with me. I'm all right. But my daughter chimes in the middle of her going through all of her list of things, and she said, do you know Jesus? Because he can help you. And I was like, I wouldn't have said that, because it's like, you straight up to the point, but like, you always try to be tactful or whatever with it, but she got right to the point, man. She like cut through the garbage and knew what to say. And I think that's what's wrong with the church. When I say church, I mean all believers right now, Israel, right? We have been conditioned, whether we like it or not, to be not as outspoken as we should be about sin and things. We should be speaking directly to the problem, because we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, and it's not about that person. It's about the spirit realm, right? And so we speak in the moment, in that we don't speak to the person. We're speaking to the spirit realm, taking authority, or clearing the air, or whatever it is. But if we would teach our kids that, because they have stronger faith than us, because they've never been hurt. They're not jaded. Yeah, they're not jaded. They don't have all these things. They've never been crushed, or a lot of them don't deal with rejection or anything like that. They just it's foreign to them. So they're able to step right out, man. And I think about the way that the family was set up, the covenant of marriage, and the responsibility to raise up a strong family and a godly family, and to pray with your wife and your kids, because you're raising up the next generation. It's really important that we pass along all that we know to our children. Like, I think it's really cool when you're reading scriptures and it says, like, and Jacob or so-and-so got old, and so he gathered his children unto him so that he could give them the blessing. Yeah. But during the blessing, it was, I'm going to tell you my life story. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, but it took like years. Yeah. I'm saying, like, these guys are like, so I'm 986, son. I'm about to tell you everything I did. Get comfortable. You're gonna need more than one coffee. But it's like, if we don't do this stuff, we don't include our kids because we shelter them from everything. When they grow up, they become like these little pansy Antifa kids that think that they get participation trophies and they're entitled to stuff. And that's not what happens. And we need to teach our kids, like, involve them in the crisis that's going on in your family right now. Like, involve them to the extent that you can, right? I mean, I know there's stuff you cannot talk about with kids, but we try to keep our kids involved with our prayer journals. When we're doing things, we're praying for things. It's for our family. I don't pray for, like, my personal stuff. You know what I mean? Only I pray for our family's success and things. And so when I'm praying, we include our kids in the prayer, and they're there with us when we pray, right? And if they want to chime in, they can, but we want them to know. And then we talk about our prayers when we see answers to our prayers. We talk about it with our kids, because we want our kids to know that we would have not have been able to do this or had this if God did not provide it for us. And He did. So He's always faithful. And I mean, it says that your it says, blessed is the man with the full quiver, right? Because your children are weapons for war.
They're arrows.
They're arrows in your quiver, man. Like, if you don't train your children to pray with you and to be weapons of war, then they become burdensome, right? And you don't want that.
They become targets.
And they're already a target.
Yeah, but in a different manner. I mean, if you're not a weapon for war, then you're a target that can't.
Right, I guess, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
I do, yeah. But I mean, there's no sense in not including them. I think, and maybe some of you are doing that. Maybe some of you have never thought about that. But I mean, if we're looking at, birth pangs and, the timeline that we all envision is upon us, our kids are going to have to be involved in this, whether we like it or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're going to get real with it, why would you not want to include them? That whole thing about going over answered prayers and stuff with the family, I mean, that's so scriptural, it's not even funny. You know what I mean? Like, how many times do you say...
Because they involve the family in a sacrifice for that, right?
Right. Well, so you got the stones in the ark was one of my favorite ones, because it would literally say, take the stones from the river of Jordan and place them in there, so that when your kids see the stones in there and they're like, what is that? You can remind them of what you went through. Well, you've got that over and over and over again.
It's also like, what is it, Jacob's well?
Yeah.
Doesn't he build wells?
Yes.
And then when the generations, they would come back to that land, they would found the wells.
Sure.
You know what I mean? They saw the altars that were built to the Lord.
Oh, yeah. Most of them are still standing to this day. John chapter 4, the Samaritan lady at the well, that's Jacob's well. I mean, these are monumental places, and I think there's even more depth there.
I'm sure there is.
At another time we could go into stuff like that. It's still certain locations.
I mean, and you think about this too, like when it says like so-and-so built an offering to the Lord, or built an altar and made an offering to the Lord. These are not like little fire pits, man.
No. No.
These are like massive stone things that took like all day to make.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they would just leave them. They're not going to be like, we should spread these out.
And you look at the threshing, you look at the threshing floors.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big deal.
It is.
When David would do some of those sacrifices, it was something like 70 bulls at a time.
Yeah.
Like 70 bulls, folks. You want to talk about?
Yeah, that's a massive event.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot.
So, one of the things I want to comment on before you move on to whatever you're going to move on to, or continue if you don't mind. You were talking about simply being bold and just speaking without beating around the bush. Right. Like the faith of a child, just simply instead of trying to be sensitive to feelings or emotions or trying to read the situation. One of the things I would advise, and again, another topic that we've been bringing up a lot is you seek the guidance of the Spirit.
Yeah.
Because when you seek this, if you just leave it at trying to simply be bold, and there's a lot of good to come out of that. I'm not going to negate that whatsoever, but if you want to know what to say, when to say, and how to say it, only the Spirit can really, truly reveal that to you.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel like in your relationship, in your walk, that you clearly hear from God exactly the right words or whatever, I mean, how many times do we say He'll give you the words in that hour?
It says, open your mouth and I will fill it.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Right? So, I mean, you can just simply, if you pray, trusting, believing, not doubting, right? If you look at all the different spots that talk about that, about not doubting when you ask, you're going to receive. You say, Father, if you want me to say something specifically to that person, because I don't know what's going on in their lives.
Right.
I don't know what's going on in their heart. I don't know what's going on in their mind. And even if it's somebody that you know, even if it's a family member, somebody that's super close, or a distant family relative, or you've got friends or a neighbor, somebody that you kind of know well, and you think you know what's going on, you're like, well, God has definitely revealed to me that they have this problem, they're definitely having this problem because I don't like that about them, whatever, right? You don't know what God wants to work on them right now.
Right.
Just because you can see certain things doesn't even mean that that's what God wants to work on. And Sampson and I were talking about that just the other day. One of my favorite analogies is you have a dirty house, right? How many times is a house or vessel used as an example of your temple, right? Your temple, your body, right? Temple. So, and you go to clean up the house and right away you're like, well, I might as well start the living room because it's the biggest room. And the Father is like, if you had asked me, I would have told you to wait. Don't go there first because we're going to be trekking mud up and down the living room while we're cleaning other rooms. You clean that first, we're going to have to re-clean it again.
Yeah.
We don't know the order. We don't know what how many times in your life, I don't know about you, but I know I can say that a lot of times I'll be like, okay, well, obviously I need to work on this, and this, and this. And I start to try to work on it on my own without even realizing that that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then when I finally realize, like, I need to ask Him, what do you want me to work on? It's not even one of those things yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just wanted to get that in there.
Well, yeah, and I think being attentive to the Spirit is always. Listen, if you want to do things the easy way, just be quiet, unless God tells you to say something. And when He tells you to say something, you won't be able to not say it. Right? You will be uncomfortable. You will be uncomfortable. You will be very uncomfortable. You will know that you're supposed to say something. Yeah. If you plan on being quiet, because a lot of people have trouble being quiet, because especially people that know a lot, right?
Well, even if you don't,
because what is that verse?
James chapter 2 talks all about that.
Well, what is the one talk about? Not like knowledge. What is it?
I probably don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. Well, but the gist of it is like you tend to like speak out all the time when you think that you're like.
If a man thinks that he knows not as he ought.
Yeah, something like that.
There's a few verses like that.
Yeah, the gist is like, I feel like you can never go wrong being silent. And I mean, because it says a fool in his tongue, all the verses about
where there are many words, it is not without sin.
Right. And I know a lot of people when they go into study and they know a specific topic or they think they have like a good perspective on it, they can't wait to share everything that they know because they think it's going to benefit you.
Right.
And it may not be the right time, but they want to get it out. Right. And I'm going to give you all of it right now.
Right. Shove it down your throat.
Yeah, shove it down your throat. So it's like a lot of times that turns people off. They get weird.
And it's not the puzzle piece for them right now.
Right.
I mean, that's another topic we're always talking about. Just because that's the puzzle piece you just received does not mean that that's the puzzle piece that everybody you encounter it needs to receive that right now.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Hey, we got a buddy coming in here. We're gonna try to see if we're gonna see if it works, guys. Bear with us.
Hey, what's up?
Do you want to?
He made it.
Roll. You want to try to roll to the side or
No,
so they can see you?
Yeah.
What's up, guys?
What are you in your car?
Yeah. We're just leaving the VA, so got Roger over here. He still has his leg.
Yeah, for today.
Oh, thank God. Yeah, man.
I just wanted to call and give you guys an update. We're heading back to the camp, so but yeah, you guys are doing good on the show, so just want to give everybody some love. Say happy Sukkot.
All right, big dog. We'll see you.
Yep, we'll see you guys here in a little bit.
All right, man. Well, that's cool. Everything's all right over there.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
I might put my coffee on your notes there.
I don't have any notes, man. Come on. You make me sound like I'm
Organized.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think, dude, like this right here, what we're doing with you right here on the show is pretty much what we've been doing all week. We pick out something to talk about, somebody brings something up, and then we just listen and learn from each other, and we dive in and we search through the scriptures to find answers if we can. You know, it's just fun, man. It's really fun to talk about the Lord with people that are sincere and want to.
Because faith is a verb.
Right.
We should be living it out.
Yeah, it's really cool. The chat room's crazy, bro.
I know there's all kinds of stuff in there. You got somebody that says I need a miracle though.
Oh, what do you need a miracle for, man? Because we can pray for that. For sure.
I think it's a female.
Yeah. Well, we don't pray for females. I'm just kidding.
This
Why'd you
guy.
say that?
This guy. See, when you've been Sukkoting with friends, you there's a lot of seriousness and there's also a lot of laughter, a lot of silliness.
Yeah, we've laughed a lot, man, for sure. When we're not crying.
Oh man, my kid. Oh my goodness.
Our kids are hilarious and torturing us. I mean, we're not stay-at-home dads, man.
No.
It's a lot.
You
We
think
appreciate moms
You
big
think that's
time.
part of Sukkot is to make the men realize what the wives go through? Do you think that's part of?
I don't know. I don't know, but it's working. But man, you know, it is. I mean, well, for me personally, I spend a lot of time with my kids, and it's hard. They're just maniacs, and I have a lot of them. Yeah, you have a couple, but they're young, and when they're young like that, man, they're just needy. They need everything, you know, constantly.
There's always something.
And then when they don't need anything, they're calling your name for no reason.
Or they're
and then
quiet.
you go over there, and they're like, "Hi," and you're like,
Yeah, they're freaking out.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? And they're
What
like,
is wrong with you?
it's a rock.
Yeah.
I wanted to show you this rock. Like, but yeah, and then when they're quiet, like you enjoy it for 2 seconds, and then it's unsettling. You're like, why is it quiet?
Exactly.
And then you find out if they're not actually up to anything no good, you just disturb the quietness. Like you just ruined your rest because you were worried that things were not good.
Oh man. Well, we're about to the top of the hour here, so we're gonna transition to the second hour here, and we're gonna talk a little bit about judges. This was something else that we talked about this week, and the title of this episode is "God in the Chaos." And I think it's cool because almost every story of the judges, it's pattern.
Yes.
Very big pattern.
Yes.
And I think that when we lay this pattern out for you, you will see a lot in common with what we're doing right now in the world, and especially in America.
Yeah.
And I mean, 2020, where are these judges, man?
It's
we
getting
need
to the
the
point
judges.
where this message needs to be understood and applied.
Yeah.
Because if not, this is a very serious topic. That's also really neat though, because
It's super cool, bro.
I mean, it should be encouraging.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're going to do what you should be doing.
Yeah. It is encouraging. I think it's exciting when we see things.
The things we talked about today, and it's been clicking, and that's been something that's been like in our subconscious for a while.
Oh, yeah.
We've been talking about this without talking about this like all year. So
It's a time of revelation. God is, if you're expectant, he will let you get it, right? He says that. So I think it's really cool. Which one do we want to talk about first? Let's lay some patterns out. What are some of the patterns? What's the best pattern chapter?
Did you do your transition? Is there something?
There's no transition.
I'm not a tech guy.
He's not a tech guy. I'm not a tech
guy.
Listen,
this is part of the reason why I haven't been doing Disputed Lands, because Chad's like, go ahead and do it. And I go to log into the StreamYard and it's like, we don't know you. And I was like, Chad,
doesn't know.
The computer said that it's not happening, so it's not happening. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we do the transition at the hour mainly for the podcast.
Okay.
So
right.
There's nothing's changing for you folks here. We are streaming to Facebook now in the Sitrep Resistance group. So if you like that better than YouTube, you can go over there and find Sitrep Resistance on Facebook and join the club. It's free. There's no requirements or anything. So join up and link up, and then also subscribe to the backup channel, which is Ian Chadrick on YouTube. So go subscribe to that, because if something happens to this channel, you're not going to know where we went.
And we know many of you have not done this yet.
Yes, we do. We know that there's 2,500 subscribers right here, and there's only 120 over there. So It's been like 4 weeks, people. Go over it. It's like one click, right? You just, click on it. That's it. That's all you do, right? So
do you need to tell them where to click?
Well, I made it real easy for you. So if you're on a laptop or if you're on a desktop or whatever, right? Just go to the Holy Hand Grenade page, which you're on right now, and over in the top right, you'll see a link to the backup channel. It says my name. That's what the backup channel is. So,
is it a different format for a phone or?
And on a phone, it doesn't show up, so you'll have to actually search.
Type it in.
Yes, you'll have to search Ian Chadrick.
So if you're on a computer, it's less work.
It's very much less work, and I actually just found out that it's not the same on a phone like yesterday. And I'm really upset about that, because it's really annoying when you have to go and look at how you format things.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Again,
people.
I love not being a tech guy.
Yeah, I do. Well, I'm not a tech guy either, but I have to make things work, because we need to have somebody. Right? We all need to be tech guys. Every one of us that has a computer or a phone should be putting out something, right? Whether it's just testimonies or what. What is God doing for you? Put it out there, man.
Well, that's the thing. We are all putting something out. It's just, is it of God or not? That's the question. I mean, whether you're on social media or not, it doesn't matter. You are an example out of the heart, or from the heart comes out of the mouth, right?
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you're on social media or not. No matter what, you're an example of something. The question is, are you exemplifying what God's doing in your life, what God's urging you to tell others, the lessons that you're learning? Are you doing praise reports? Or is it, all about the world?
Yeah. Yeah.
You wanted to cut straight to things, right?
That's right. We did this last week. We talked about that exact thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Reiterating. That's good. It's another person. We didn't coach you at all, did we?
No.
There you go.
Even if you did, I would have went off script anyways.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's not a script guy or a tech guy.
No. I'm a scripture guy, not a script guy. And, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, so Judges.
Yeah, I'm looking through it. This is where it'd been really nice for Aaron, because Aaron was reading Judges. We were going through Judges, and I just read Judges like a few weeks ago. So instead of going over it with him, I was looking at Joshua, and I was looking at a couple other things, and then I got sucked into a study, because he was reading things, and then he would like mumble to himself, and he'd go through like the names of people and stuff, and then also he'd stop and he'd look at me and be like, hey, what do you know about this?
Yeah.
So I couldn't really do my study because he kept sucking me in. So and then he would say something interesting, and I was like, well, that reminds me. And I remembered what he's getting into, and I got excited, because the Book of Judges, if you're not familiar with the Book of Judges, it's a fun book. I mean, this is not. You could say that about all Scripture, really, if you're getting led to read that. Even like my mom used to really dislike the Book of Numbers. She thought it was boring, and I'm like, there's fiery serpents in the Book of Numbers. There's a talking donkey with an angel in the Book of Numbers. There's crazy stuff going on. There's giants beyond. Numbers 13. That's one of the, So, anyways, no matter where you go, there's interesting stuff if you're being led to it. But the Book of Judges, if you're not familiar with it, there's a lot of wars. There is a lot of up and down, and that's part of the pattern that we were really getting into this week, was the up and downs. You see this roller coaster pattern, and so when you see this pattern, it's not just up and down willy-nilly. There's reasons as to why when it's up and when it's down. Did you want to take it from there, or do you want
No,
to
go for it.
Okay. So I mean, the you want me to go with the simple gist, because I'm still looking for like a good example of where to start.
We can do.
I'm in chapter 1 right now, and
well, we can. You don't have to read it right now if you want. We can just lay it out. I mean, what's the pattern? It looks like God's people get complacent,
right,
and comfortable, and they start whoring around with other gods.
And that's when they're on their way down.
And they're on their way down. Yep. And then they get to the bottom, and it's like that whole.
They start to reap what they sow.
They do nothing that is good. Their minds are continually evil.
Right.
And God's going to judge them to the point of kill them all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty bad,
Yeah.
When you get to that point, that's like, I don't know, man. Sometimes your kids test you, right? You're like, don't touch that. And you look over and they're like, you're like, hey. And they just keep doing it, right? And you're like, man, till they get to the point where you're like, I'm going to murder you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's pretty good.
Okay. That might not have been the best example. I hope people understand the humor here with you and things. But, how many times this week, man, especially the wives, right? But even us, but we've been leaving a lot of the things to the wives. We step in and
thank you,
like,
Jesus,
you guys
for our wives.
My goodness, yes. But how many times did your wife, my wife, or Sampson's wife have to repeat the same command to any of the children? And this is, can I say this? This is no exaggeration. 50 times within 3 hours.
And the sad part is, 2 of them are playing together, and you're yelling the same thing at the one 80 times. And then when he gets it, the one that was literally right next to him
starts to do it.
Does it. And you're like, what is going on?
No,
why are you? You didn't tell me. It's like, what do you mean?
Right.
We said guys.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right,
what are you guys doing?
And so, how much is the body doing that though?
Exactly. I think God He loves
showing us
days. We're like praying for relief. We're like, God, we prayed today. This is not a joke. I prayed out loud we were praying for dinner. I prayed that a van. Okay. I prayed for a van full of babysitters to roll down my street and have car trouble right in front of my house.
So that they could Sukkot with us and also babysit the children. And
it's not a lie. We legit prayed it. And we were all in agreement. Every one of us was in agreement. We wanted that van to be full of the babysitters club.
If not multiple buses.
Yeah, or a bus. The babysitters club. Lord, bring them here and destroy their vehicle right in front of our house.
Yes.
Oh man, it was that kind of day. But I think as we grow deeper in our relationships and we pray for things, and He's revealed things to us, and we are healed from things, things are removed, and we start to. I literally kind of am ashamed in some ways about making God do that to me.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like yell at him. He's not yelling at me, but
no, I get.
But you know what I'm saying? Reprimanding us over and over, man, and you're just constantly praying for. And He's like, dude, I don't have to give you that. You literally just have to stop doing this.
Right.
It's
right.
Like,
just stop playing in the dirt. Just stop playing in the dirt. Stop playing in the dirt.
Every time I give you a chicken nugget, you throw it on the floor. Put it in your mouth instead of throwing it on the floor, and you won't be hungry. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
It's like, I know that's a super weird analogy.
Except for this.
Except for that's happening. Yes.
It's actually happening.
It's like my dog is loving it, man. She get the best meal plan. Sukkot meal plan.
Hey, even the dogs eat the crumbs off the table.
This ain't no crumbs, man. This is like a golden corral.
I know it. Well,
it's unbelievable.
This
like,
is supposed to be
any of it get in your mouth? How are you hungry?
This is a feast.
No, I know.
For the dog.
No, it's insane. You guys are missing out. So next year, guys, this is where it's at. Anyways.
You're talking about the valleys and the hills.
Yeah,
right?
the valleys
Basically.
and the hills.
And they're at the valley, and I mean, you got talking about the gods that they've taken up, all of a sudden becoming a snare unto them, a thorn in their side.
Right.
Which is something that is not just exclusive to the book of Judges. This is a pattern we find with God's children all throughout,
yep,
beginning to end. So obviously it's going to be applicable to us, both individually as well as, certain parts of the body as well as the entire body of believers. Okay, so how do the valleys turn back into hills?
God sends a judge to tell him, listen,
right,
better figure it out.
Right. It was judges, and then you got Samuel and started becoming prophets. But basically, it was the same type of role. It was the same office, same significance. I'm not saying that a judge is a prophet. Well,
it's a second witness.
Yeah, that's true. But what I'm saying is like what they're called to do in terms of to turn the tide.
Yeah,
is the same.
It's grace. God gives you that grace,
and it comes with what though?
I don't know.
You're like, I don't know what to set me up for. It comes with a demand for repentance.
Yeah,
it comes for a demand of you want to get out of the valley, and when you're in that valley, like we were talking about earlier, you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
As you start to get out of the valley, because you're super comfortable in the flesh.
Oh yeah.
In the valley, the only thing that's uncomfortable when you're in the valley is your spirit. You feel it. You feel that disappointment in yourself. And, when we talked about James 2 earlier, just a little bit in the book of James in general.
Yeah, keep going.
It's in James, the book of James is, one of the things that people like to quote with James is faith is dead without works.
Right.
Your faith starts to die when you're in those valleys because you're so comfortable in the flesh that you're not walking in the spirit, and I mean, look at what Ephesians and Galatians talks about with walking in the spirit versus not walking in the spirit. But again, I mean, so yeah. What do you...
Okay, so I was looking at this book here. I've referred to this book several times. I'm reading out of this freedom curriculum here because you just reminded me something when you said that you're when you're feeding your flesh or whatever, your spirit is uncomfortable, right?
Right.
And your spirit. So this here, let me see. So let me read. It's like a spirit. This is showing you a spiritual order. So your spirit is the outside, the soul, and then the body. So you feed the spirit first, then the soul, and it feeds your body. As long as you're feeding it in that order. So spiritual order provides a framework for living in the tree of life. It allows you to live with your spirit united with God and your soul and body submitted to your spirit. In other words, your spirit, which is now one with God, calls the shots, and the soul and body follow. So here's the real question. If I am saved, why do I struggle with sin? The answer is found in the process of sanctification and the principle of spiritual order. When we give our lives to Jesus, we receive everything we need for life and godliness. 2 Peter 1:3. But we may still struggle because our spirit is not in the lead. What we give the most attention to will become the most influential. Our spirit can take the lead only if we feed it more than our soul and body. The world around us is constantly feeding our souls through the things we see and hear, and our bodies, if starved, make it known that they're hungry. But if we withhold gratification from our souls and our bodies, they get loud. Our spirit, on the other hand, when it's not fed, it gets quiet. And I wanted to bring that up because, when you're out of whack, it gets harder because your spirit is super quiet.
Yeah.
And it's not like you don't feel that pain where you're becoming physically discomfort. Like the discomfort is there physically.
The conviction is not as strong because you're ignoring it.
You're ignoring it, right? You've quenched the fire.
Yeah.
Right? So
it says do not quench the Holy Spirit.
Do not quench it, right? You always have to have the fire on the altar.
Right.
We talked about that.
We did.
So you're putting the fire out. And and this comes from abiding, right? And that's what when Joshua was called to take over for Moses, it was because he had the relationship, and it says that he snuck into the tent of meeting and spent the night after Moses left.
He stayed.
He stayed when Moses left. He stayed.
Yeah. We're talking about in the presence of God.
Yeah.
This was the place that Moses was allowed, and obviously, when Chadrick says sneak in, it's not like God didn't know,
right?
Or one of those like, oh well, I guess I'll allow it or something, and I won't zap him or something like that. Like God knew what was going on, and He knew that He was going in there not to be
maybe
nosy,
Moses
but because he wanted. Yeah, Moses might not.
He might not have been like, bro, you're not going to be like this is the this is the
you
Holy of Holies. You're not
supposed to go in there,
right? You're not going to camp in here, bro.
Right.
Like,
which speaks volumes of God knowing of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That Joshua, or O'Shea, right? Whatever you want that he he was called and anointed, and that he like I said, he wasn't going in there to be nosy.
Hosea, dude, let's bring that up. If you guys didn't know this is super cool. So in the book of Numbers, right? It's in Numbers when they're given the census.
Yes.
So another cool thing that happens in Numbers. Yeah. Another cool thing from the book of Numbers. When they're taking the census, they call Joshua, they call him Hosea of Nun.
Hosea.
Or Hosea.
O-S-H-A or E-A.
I believe it has an H, though.
I don't think so.
Look it up. Because
I was looking at Galatians.
I'm always wrong in the KJV, so look it up. But anyways, yeah, so his name was Hosea, and they call him Hosea, son of Nun, and then it says that Moses changed his name when he was separating the men to be the spies.
Yeah, right before he
sent the spies out, he changed Joshua's name, and that is so cool.
Yeah.
Because of all the other times we see name changes and how significant they are in the scriptures.
Right.
Joshua got a name change. And this is before Christ.
Right. Yeah.
And you know?
Yeah. We were talking about that. Yeah.
It's it's just there's so many cool things, man. And it's really cool when you get something like that, like a little revelation or something clicks for you, and you have brothers around you that you can share it with, and they're excited too. It's awesome. Yeah. It's just like a glimpse of what it must have been like to be with the 12. And I mean, we brought that up when we were taking the world, remember? Yeah. Where we would have these fireside chats after the conference, and we would stay out there all night. And there was one point where we were sitting there, it was like on one of the last days, and there was 12 of us at the fire. And I was just like, as I'm sitting there, I counted the 12, and I thought, man, this is so cool. This has got to be what it was like to be one of the 12 disciples. And you know what I mean? You give up your whole life and you're just hanging out with these guys and you're learning and you're right there with the Messiah, and that's the cool thing about Sukkot, because now you're the temple, right? You're the temple of the Lord. And so you're honoring you're remembering when God dwelt with man, when he sent his son to dwell in, right? Am I right about that?
I was looking.
When God came to earth to Sukkot
with
us, to tabernacle with us.
Some even argue that he was manifest in the flesh, given he was born in a sukkah.
Yes, yeah.
In a booth, not just a...
Well, that's really exciting too, when you think about that kind of stuff.
But yeah, came to dwell with man, and that shows the past, it shows current, right? Yeah. That's where you get your abide, like John chapters 14 through 16, talking about, I'm going to leave so that the Comforter will abide in you and with you. And but you also get the future. I mean, your Sukkot has plenty of what you're looking forward to. That's, for anybody who's not familiar with the feast, the 3 fall feasts have a lot of future tense of what's coming. And another one of the many reasons as to what it's not the reasons of why you do feasts. It's one of the many perks and revelations and understandings, one of the many good things that comes out of doing these things. I mean, you're doing Bible things the Bible way. Who was that? Was that Staley that says that?
Bible things, Bible ways?
Yeah. I think so. I can't remember. I liked how they said that. And I was like, that's...
Bible things, Bible ways.
So I still haven't found that.
And I challenge you guys. I do this all the time still, constantly. When you find yourself...
people?
No, like when you find yourself doing something... Ask yourself why.
Yeah.
Why do I do it this way? And then consider if there's a better way. Or, you know what I mean? Analyze. Yeah, like, hey, am I doing this the right way? Am I because I know I've been doing this for a long time, but am I doing it wrong? Should I go back and investigate? Because a lot of times you could find yourself doing something because you were taught to do it that way, and it may not be right.
Yeah.
It just was,
Yeah.
And then the conviction comes when you investigate, because that's the Lord prompting you to check yourself, right? I mean, he's constantly doing that. He's constantly, you're starting, when you're walking on this place, in the narrow path, a place of pressing, he's constantly prodding you to keep you on there, because you just want to veer off.
Right.
Because it gets easier.
Well, you're fighting against the flesh.
Right.
And also, again, we're talking about that comfort. When you get comfort, you get complacent. When I was in the military, one of the terms that they used to always say is complacency kills. The moment you get so used to doing missions, if you're the machine gunner and your job is to make sure that you're on the lookout for IEDs and people that might shoot the vehicle and things to look out for. The moment you're like, you know what, the past 2 weeks we've gone out on the same road.
No one's been here.
Nothing's happening.
Yeah.
That's the day that you might miss something, and that can be the difference of life. So spiritually, you can say the same. The moment you become spiritually complacent is when things are going to catch you off guard. I mean, if you're supposed to be a watchman in many ways, right? Not just for the body, but also for your household, for yourself, for your own walk. You fall asleep on the wall, who knows who's going to come crawling up and climbing up to your walls. And then at that point, you get woken up and you're not too happy about it, and you could have did something.
Well, this ties right into another judge, Gideon.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
We talked a lot about Gideon.
Yeah, but listen, though, man.
Gideon's,
so you just said it. You said it yourself. You got to be complacency kills. Yeah. And when Gideon was making that army and God was separating and dwindling it down to a small, was it 300? It was 300.
I think it was 300.
The original 300, right? So you see the movie with Leonidas and the 300, right? The Roman copycat story, I think, right? Gideon was a 300.
That's one of the examples. You also have Abraham when he went to rescue Lot. I mean, there's a.
Did he take 300 in there? I thought he only took like 50.
I'll have to. Sorry, don't quote me on that. Well,
I don't know. I could be wrong too. I don't know, but I just think it's cool because when he's putting them through those tests, he does like 2 or 3 different things, and each time he says, "Keep the ones that did this and get rid of the ones that did that. Send them home."
The water drinking was
the water drinking. Yeah, he said said take a drink from the stream. We'll read it.
Well, I'm gonna find it real quick, but the first one wasn't it like if you don't feel like it, if you're scared or you don't.
Yeah, he said anybody that's scared, go home.
Right, which is it's not even the first time or only time that you see that as well. How many times? And I love that about the Israelites. If you're within the first year of your marriage,
you're not
doing the battle.
Yeah.
If you're scared, if you don't feel the courage of God, go home right now.
If you're your only kid, if you're the only son of your parents,
right,
go home.
So that there's an heir.
So there's an heir. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these are gracious things. They weren't like he wasn't trying to be mean. Like if you're an only child, you can't fight in my army. He was. It's like he was saying like the bloodline or the lineage matters. So
it does.
We're giving you a point. Like I know you have honor to fight, but
now you sound like Sampson.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. I'm at Judges 6, which is where Gideon is. I'm just trying to find.
Well, that's fine. I'll spew on because he tells them to drink from the brook, right? And then there are several of them that put their head in the stream to drink from the brook, and then there are some that cup the water and bring it to their mouth because they're aware. Their heads are always up. And he says, keep these guys, right? The rest of them, send them home. And
Okay, so from a military standpoint, I like to look at a lot of things military tactic ways. That's why I enjoy Walden's stuff because he sees certain things that I see. He sees a lot of things that I don't see, but it clicks for me having a military background. These guys were already aware that they were going to go to battle.
Yep.
Okay, so you and I, we're getting ready to go to battle. We've got an army, right? The listener, you're getting ready to go for a battle. You've got your armor on, you've got your weapon, right? And then everybody who wants to go home, and a bunch of them left. Right? It was a lot.
Yeah.
We're talking like tens of thousands, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's not any different than today.
Yeah, that's true.
When the church is calling for people to go out in the streets and confront things, and you have demonic things going on, and we need people to take authority. We're the only ones, the believers, right, that are with the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. We have the authority of Christ to go and conquer, and yet we're too scared. And God allows us to stay home. And I'm not saying it's the right choice.
Right. No, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, but, obviously they were scared and they wouldn't be effective in that battle.
Right.
So they were overlooked.
If you're not mentally ready for battle, then your place is not in the battlefield.
Right.
And you can see grace in that. You can also see need for correction in that. You can see a lot of things in that, But yeah, what I was going to say is you're in your army. You have no idea at what point your commander is going to be like, behold, the enemy is upon us.
Yeah.
All right. Or, okay, God said we're moving forward. So when you get down on your hands and knees, when I was in the military, we had many things that they would ingrain in us in training from the get-go so that it would be natural for you that if you're going to
muscle memory.
If you're going to sit down, it's not even just muscle memory. It's just behaviors, which we can even get into if you want to go into that. But like, if you're going to sit down, you have your back to another person's back, because that way you have both.
Full
there is constantly precautions like there. I mean, in basic training, when I was in there, they would even have us. We felt so stupid doing this until they told me why, and I was like, okay, I'll do it, even though it's kind of stupid. You'd go into the cafeteria, and you'd have to get your food on a tray, go set it down, and then you'd go get your cups. They had to do it separately, right? And I was like, oh, they just don't want us spilling things, right? But when you go to get the cups, you got to hold them to your chest. And the first time they told me that, I thought it was like a joke, or like when you pick on like freshmen. Right, and I was like, oh, they just want to make us feel stupid, and they just want us to be braided down. And then, so one of the drill sergeants was like, you know why we do that? And I said, no, I have no idea. So we don't spill. And he goes, no, because you need to know to hold the grenade to your chest before you're going to throw it. There's reasons for these things. They ingrain it in you. So when you are a combat soldier getting ready for battle. And you see a brook and it's downtime for a second, and your default thought process is to get on your hands and knees. I mean, you're not even making sure that there's someone standing right behind you. Then you're already showing, whether you can consciously or subconsciously acknowledge it, you are not prepared for battle.
Yeah.
It is a physical expression of the spiritual. We talk about that all the time, about how the physical will mirror the spiritual.
Yep.
They were not ready.
Yeah,
that's
good. It's good. It's good to hear real perspective,
you'd have to get up. You'd have to stand up to fight. Someone could kick you into the river. I mean, we could go into this for a good minute if we really wanted to. But if you're standing and you got water in your hand, you can drop your hand and grab your weapon, and you're good to go. And that shows that they were thinking that, at the very least, subconsciously, that was in their default. Like, they were ready for battle.
Well, I mean, think about this in another perspective too. I mean, like, most soldiers, they've all done basic training, but there's elite, then there's the best of the best, right?
Always.
And God, you look at platoons that can't do what a SEAL team can do.
Right.
So, and there's, you know what I mean? So
yeah, you're looking at 6 versus like a version of like 20, 30 plus.
Yeah. And so, God's dwindling down, but he's taking the hardcore guys, right? He only has need for the special operators, I mean, and that's what's up.
Hey, you gonna come join us?
I don't know.
I'm starving.
You're starving. All right, well, let me move then.
Just scoot over a little bit.
Oh, go ahead and stay out for a second. I'm just looking upstairs anyways.
What's up, everybody?
What's up? Well, we get another chair. I don't know.
No, I'm gonna eat, so I just wanted to come in and see everybody. I couldn't. I had to help him get up the stairs, so. But
is he going all right?
Yeah. Everybody, if you can, pray for my father-in-law. I don't know if you guys said anything about that.
We didn't say who it was. We said it was an anonymous man.
Yeah, he caught a chainsaw blade to the knee today. Yeah. So, but yeah, he's still kicking. Man, he's a trooper. The guy, you can tell he's military.
Yeah. Well, he's just sitting there. We're bandaging it. He's just like, I'll bandage it up real quick so I can finish up.
Yeah, we got to finish up.
I'm gonna go cut down the rest of the tree.
Yeah, it's crazy because I mean, like they were like temporary stitching him up and stuff, and no lidocaine and stuff. He's just, it's crazy. It's a warrior.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you get back to it, guys. But good to see you guys.
You sure you don't want to jump in? We're talking about Judges, the book.
I know.
I read all day.
Tell him Nathan Reynolds is one that told me to read it.
Oh, they probably heard you.
Nathan Reynolds. I never heard of Nathan Reynolds. I don't know who you're talking about.
Who is this guy?
He sounds like a Lennonite. That's a bad joke.
Yeah. And speaking of name changes, Gideon too.
That's right. Jerubbaal.
Jerubbaal. Yeah. The one who contends with Baal because he was throwing down the altars of Baal.
Yeah, he was a beast. And we were talking about this earlier because we both, or at least personally, I identify with Gideon because I had to throw out. So I'm the guy that throws out fleeces about everything. I mean, I'm serious. I do it all the time.
Yeah, I do.
And he and I feel like sometimes I feel like shame about it because I'm like, I shouldn't need to do this. But God answers every time, man. Every time. It's just a cool thing that me and God got going on. And it's really interesting. But the fleece thing, he has to, God calls him to do something and he's like, all right, God, I'm going to throw this lambskin out in the yard. And if it's wet and the ground is dry, We're cool. And then he does it. And then he's like, we'll throw it back out there again.
There's things like do and things, and let's just
exactly.
double make sure.
So then he says, I want the fleece to be dry and the ground to be wet, or whatever the opposite was I just said. And he does that again. I think he does it the third time.
The second time the fleece is dry and the ground has dew.
Yeah. And then there's something else at the end too.
Which I think is kind of silly.
And then I
like
think
the
he's like,
fleece
all right, God, I need you to do one. And then I think God reaches down and smacks him across his face. Is that in there?
No, that's not how it
okay.
goes. No, but I did find the spot if you want to hear it.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the Midianites, which were vastly outnumbering the Israelites. And again, whether you're into military tactics or you just want to appreciate the story, if you're outnumbered by the people you're going to go up against, your first thought isn't, let's lessen our army.
Yeah.
That's not your first thought. You're outnumbered.
That's not a thought.
At all.
No.
At all.
No. That's when you start saying, is there
We
any
need
way
less-
we can like shave all the wives' heads
Right.
and like give them something to bang and like
We need babysitter
it's all or nothing.
recruiters. Something.
It's all or nothing, man.
Okay, so yeah, they're strongly outnumbered, right? And God tells Gideon, the people that are with you are too many. Right? You guys are outnumbered, but you have too many. Lest, and this is what I really love this verse. There's a lot of things like this. I mean, Abraham says this as well. He turns down gifts, saying the exact same thing. Unless you say you're the one that makes me rich and provide for me instead of God, I'm going to say no. And I've actually had moments in my life where I'm like,
Elijah, or is it Elisha?
No, well,
one of them does that too. Remember, he tries to pay him.
It was his servant. No. His servant. It wasn't Elijah. I think it was Elisha's servant. Elisha after Elijah went up, and his servant went back after he healed the man. The captain
he said, "I don't
of
want
Syria with leprosy." He said, "We don't need anything." And then he goes to leave, and the servant goes back, and he goes, we spoke too soon. We have need for some stuff, and they give him more than what he asked for. But you can even feel the vibe in the text, like you can feel it while reading it. That the captain is like, oh, like you just went down a notch of like, man, you were like these holy God people that I do not comprehend at all. To oh yeah, you are still people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can feel that. He's like, oh, well, be content and take more. Right. Mm-hmm. And now it's almost like he earned his cleansing of leprosy rather than just received it as a free gift. I mean, there's so many things you can say about that story. So anyways, the servant gets back and he knows right away. And he's like, is it a time to receive gifts? So anyways, like that, it says there's too many to give the Midianites into your hands. Right. He doesn't just leave it at there's too many. He goes, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, mine own hand hath saved me. Mm-hmm. Right? So we're going to lessen your army, even though you're outnumbered, we're going to lessen it to the point to where you know that it was because of me, which God does all the time. I mean, you can even say that with Gideon alone. When Gideon first gets called out, he's like, dude, I am the least of my tribe, and my tribe is the least. Why would you pick me? God does these reasons. I mean, when he picked out David, when he picked out Joseph, it was constantly the people that you would least expect, because when you see these things happen, you go, man, God has to be with them, because otherwise this makes zero sense, right? And so they say, okay, now therefore go to proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, whosoever is fearful and afraid, whoever is not battle ready, let him return and depart early from Mount Gilead. And there returned to the people 22,000. 22,000, bro. We're like, I'm out. Peace.
That probably took like 5 days for 22,000 dudes to pick up their tent and roll.
They might have ran. They get hot dinner now. They don't have to do battle.
I don't know, man. They were warriors, though.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying.
But they were probably scared, But still, I mean, that's quite a traffic jam.
So 22,000 leave.
22,000 people try and get them at the stadium.
Yeah, not with 22,000 people in it. My goodness.
Yeah, it sucks.
I've never gone to like an NFL game, so I don't know how many people they hold, but so that left 10,000. So more than 2/3, just a little bit more than like almost 70%, probably around 70%. So maybe the calculator.
Can you imagine that though? I'm sure it wasn't like if we separated 22,000 from 2, it's two groups, 22,000 and 2. Imagine if 22,000 people left and like there was people that were like hundreds of yards apart from another guy. Like, hey, like, how you doing? Like, you can't even tell that there's that many people left. You're like, man, this sucks. There's like, I'm the only guy over here.
Yeah.
I have to walk a mile to find somebody else that's on my team.
Right.
What
happened?
Well, I mean, you think about how many people. Maybe some of them didn't leave right away. When the first 10,000 left, they're like,
right. People started getting up, and
they
then
were
they
getting
started
scared. They got
like,
scared.
well, if he goes, I'm going to go too. Forget this, and
I mean, so it's a long process. It's not like an immediate thing. So, like I'm just trying to bring that up because I think it's relevant because these things that happen when God does something, they don't just happen like in one day. They're a process. It's like time.
Unless it says so.
Time elapses. But time elapses between these things, and you can overthink things and get scared.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, like you said, you might be sitting there going like, no, I probably shouldn't go. I don't want to be that guy. And
or I was going to go, but then everybody's leaving. Like, what if your whole clique left?
Right.
And then you're like the only dude. And you're like, I don't know, man.
Right.
My entire unit of guys just left.
What am I going to stick here on my own?
Yeah. You start to talk yourself out of it. It's like the perfect example is like when you look at people saying, when God speaks to you, when the Holy Spirit speaks to you in the moment and tells you to do something, when you don't react immediately, you talk yourself out of it.
Yeah. And even if not, we've talked about how things are supposed to be done in time, in season. So I'm not going to say every single time, but there's a good chance that if you delay to the point where you no longer hear it, you're doing it out of season, and now it's not even God's will.
Mm-hmm. He's not with you, maybe.
Right. Well, I mean, look at, point an example. They see the Giants and they're like, yeah, no, we're not going up there.
Yeah.
Right. And then God's like, all right, well, we have issues. And then the Israelites are go, okay, we'll go up there. And he's like, no, don't go up there now because I'm not with you. And they went and they got destroyed.
Yeah.
Point an example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
that's hilarious now.
I love reading this stuff, man.
I know, me too.
So the 22,000 leave. You got 10,000 guys left. Trial number 2. Once they've gone, and I said they start leaving the next morning, but who knows how long, like you said. So then he's telling him to go through. Pick this one to go. Tell this one to stay. That's phase 2 of the phasing, right? So he's sending people home. And then after that, he brings them down into the water. And that's when he says, okay, everyone that laps the water with his tongue as a dog laps, you put him aside, you categorize him, you tell him, hey, go over, you're team alpha, you're team bravo. You go this way, you go this way, you go this way. And a lot of times when it comes to military tactics, and you'll see this with the Israelites, how many times did they split their army up into 3 armies?
Yeah.
And they were super successful, not because they did that.
I mean, it's a normal thing.
It is.
Separate.
You get many angles, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So they're probably not even thinking anything of it. I don't. Would you be sitting there going like, "Hey, we're all the guys that were on our knees"?
No, I mean you have 2 different missions going on, probably.
Right.
Like,
and
especially you guys to take this, you guys to take that.
Right. Especially considering how
compartmentalized, but old school.
How little are the ones that are put onto the one side that end up? I mean, it ends up being 300.
Yeah, and they're probably thinking they're chosen to do something special.
Right.
Not.
Right.
We're doing all of it. Wait, what? I think somebody, like, imagine somebody comes, I mean, maybe it wasn't Gideon that was telling these guys what they were supposed to do. Maybe he sent somebody, and they're like, no, you guys are the only ones you're going to go do this. And they're like, whoa, buddy. Who the heck are you?
Yeah, right. Let me see your
You
orders.
need to go back there. Dude, there's no way he told you that. Yeah, you're wrong, bro. You didn't say.
Right.
I mean, sure, this stuff happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, you had 32,000 in your army. You're outnumbered at 32,000. Let's cut it down to 300.
Hey, where's the other army at, Sarge?
Yeah. What are we doing
Where's
here?
everybody at?
Yeah.
They're gone, man. They're playing Xbox. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, they're going to hang out.
Yeah.
We're going to do this without them. We got this. We got this, which we trained for.
Boosting each other up.
Yeah, you guys are all black belts.
But then,
what are you whining about?
But then what are they told to do? To blow a trumpet, grab a clay jar.
Oh, dude, imagine that too. God, that would suck. Give me your sword. Hey, give me your sword. Take this pot. Like, what? What does that have to do with this pot? He's like, yeah. But man, I used to feel so bad.
Practicing hitting somebody with
man, when you're like, my mom was like a Civil War buff, man. She like loved the Civil War, so we would go to like battlefields all the time and check out these things and read all the plaques and all the diaries of these soldiers and stuff, dude. And like some of the craziest stuff are the guys that played like the flute or carried the flag,
piccolo or something. Yeah, the banner holders.
dude.
Well,
That job would
bannermen.
suck, man.
Bannerman.
All you do is carry the flag. There's like a backup dude too.
Right, because you're gonna
probably get shot. Yeah. You don't even have a gun. You just have a
flying
freaking
around
flag.
you, and
Can you
you're
imagine? Like, all right, hold on. I'm about to role play something real quick, and the people on the video are going to get to see this, but not the podcast. He's an enemy. I'm a flag carrier. We run into each other while I'm like running with the flag. You have a gun. I don't have a gun. We're on opposite teams. What do we do? Because obviously, I would feel bad. You're staring at some kid carrying a flag, and he's on the other team, so you want to kill people on the other team. That's the whole point, right? We kill them, we win.
Right.
This dude runs up to you with a flag, and you're like, you know,
Yeah.
do you kill him, or do you like, he's just a flag guy?
Right.
When you're the flag guy, do you think, stab this guy with my flag? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's like awkward moment. We're like, hey, you don't say nothing, I won't say nothing. You turn around and just walk back the other way, you know?
And that's what happens when you have the two flag guys come up by each other. Hey man, I'm gonna go this way, you go that way. We'll do our little wave and first.
Or if you see they meet up, he's like, I like what you did back there. I saw that one move that you were doing. It's like, you did?
Can you show me how to do that real quick? That was cool.
Oh, dude, yeah, you gave me a pot.
This is what happens when I'm around you.
It's fun, man.
Okay.
Nobody talks about the Bible like we do, man.
You know how we talked about splitting up into 3 companies? That's actually what happened with the 300 there. 3 companies of 100. They had the trumpets in the right hand. They broke the pitchers and they held the lamps in their left hands. So, I mean, obviously God sends confusion into the camp of the Midianites in this situation, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you're talking over 30,000 people surrounded by 300 in camps of, 3 sets of 100. Obviously, there's some confusion going on, and it's a spiritual thing. But God,
it's chaos.
Yeah, it is.
This is what's interesting because, when people talk about occult stuff, they always reference the fact that they want to bring order from chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And they produce the chaos.
In order to
produce yes, and it's a Hegelian dialectic.
Right. It's just like the mafia. We're going to cause a problem.
We cause the problem, then we become the solution. Yes.
Right.
So, like, a lot of people think that when you refer to chaos, it's the absence of God. But that's the title of this show because I thought it was important to let everyone know that God is there in the midst of the chaos.
See, I always like to say in the midst of the storm, but they're both.
Well, storm is chaos, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying that.
And you know how interesting that you reference the storm because if you Q followers out there and how Trump keeps referencing the storm, this is the storm, right? Pay attention to the waters, watch the waters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as cheesy as this sounds, what if God literally is allowing this psyop, whatever you want to call the Q thing? I don't really know at this point. There's so much stuff. But you got a guy who's president named Trump. What do you got to that, right?
Yeah, right. Trump and Pence.
And Pence. You've heard the whole people where they say Trump Pence. It's the last Trump Pence. All this stuff. But, what if God literally is treating us like we're kids that are morons? And he's like naming people things and having them say phrases that are literally guiding us to where we are, maybe. Like to help us be like, hey,
what if God's using the situation?
Yeah, what if he's in the midst of the chaos and he's got a pattern and we're starting to see it and we're like, wait a minute, what are the odds that this and this and that he can't plan all this? We give the enemy too much credit, man. Yeah. We literally look at the enemy and we're like, these guys, this is all one big psyop. Dude, the enemy's not that good.
Or even if it was, though,
right?
You can't say that God's not using it.
Right. I mean, the fact that we are now acknowledging if people are saying this might be the last president, well, it'd be the last Trump. We better get ready for the last Trump.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it is the last Trump,
Right, but no,
it's a reference to
it's
trigger your mind and be like the last Trump.
we need to
What's
get
the
ready.
last Trump? And then you look up the last Trump, and you're like, oh, wow.
Oh, 1 Corinthians 15.
You throw out the rapture because you're like, oh, not the thing. Right?
You gotta go
It's
there.
like, yeah, I went there.
Yeah, you
I
should.
went there last week or the week before that too, but and every other previous week. But
No.
you
You like to go on that?
oh, I do.
I used to.
I do because
Back when I did videos on Facebook,
Yeah.
I did that a lot.
I just think it's it's really exciting because we're like, if we stop looking at things and being like, because a lot of people in the truther community, they've said, we're all watchmen, right? God never made me a watchman. He never said that that's your gifting and I want you to expose evil all day long, every day with memes, or you know what I mean? Like,
Well, even if you are a watchman, exposing evil isn't the only task.
I mean,
but
being a watchman comes with great responsibility.
yes.
And you could very well be a watchman and be blind.
Yes.
Like it says in the scripture, the watchmen are asleep. Or, You know what I mean? I mean, you could be asleep. You think
Sleep
you're
on the
awake.
wall.
And
Yeah.
obviously, if you don't have the spirit or a good relationship and you can't hear what's going on, you're not receiving direction and correction, you're asleep.
Right.
Might be a watchman, but you
Right.
ain't watching the right stuff. You're
You-
looking over into the backyard.
You're
supposed to be
holding-
looking the other way.
You're holding a flag in the middle of a battlefield.
Exactly. Holding
You're
a
not
flag.
even
And you might not
called to do
even have the right flag. You
Yeah.
got boxer shorts on a stick, and you're like, hey, what the? It's like a Simpsons episode.
Not even doing this right.
Yeah, but it's like, I just think like it's important to pay attention. It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
Once you start to see things and you're like, okay, I'm not giving the enemy credit for this anymore. Whether it's a psyop or not, I see what God's doing in this. Or I see potential for God to work and move in this way, in this area. I see a pattern from Scripture.
Right.
I know where we're at and what's required of us.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what a watchman does.
Right.
When you see something, you're like, hey, and then you shout back what's coming and what to do.
Right. Instead of
You don't just say, they're coming, and you just run away. Like,
Right.
what?
Well, yeah.
Anybody can do that.
which is still better than facing the camp instead of the outside and
Right.
shooting arrows inside the camp like we've been talking
Yeah,
about.
you have to be able to receive direction. You have to be able to see potential. I mean,
And you have to be able to discern too.
yeah,
I mean,
that's the
when
difference
they-
between upper class warriors. When you have in your mind that you will not die, or it doesn't matter if you die.
Right.
Like we were saying before, when you're in the middle of a firefight, before the bullets are flying, you're scared. Once they start flying and you get past that whole, I may not survive this,
You're more effective.
you're more effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're too afraid to pop your head up to shoot at the enemy, then what are you doing?
Exactly. And I think a lot of people are that way because they have went so far in their relationship and they haven't gotten the full trust
Right.
that's needed,
Sure.
or
They're not
the
battle
training.
ready.
You're not battle ready, and you
Mhm.
need to, because we're not going to be. He's not going to hold our hand the whole time. I mean,
Right.
he'll be with us.
I mean, if you want to be one of the 300 guys that goes back and says, "Yeah, we took him out with clay jars and trumpets and,
Yeah.
and a lamp."
Yeah. I don't know, man. Some people could be the warrior. Some people could be the clay jar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the potter and the pottery. But yeah, no, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, because the clay jar gets broken, smashed to startle, and Hey, you went real deep
I
with
went
that
deep.
for a second. Yeah.
Yes, sir. What are you reading?
That was heaviness that I was not even prepared to hear come out of your mouth.
Jesus
did-
made me do it.
Did we even identify for them what happens when you get the judge or the prophet? Right, we said that you call out for repentance, and all throughout the book of Judges, we didn't even give really an example of that. I mean, Gideon was called out. Okay, so to tie in Gideon, since we talked about Gideon so much, let's show the valley that was before it. I mean, they were struggling, and that's why Gideon needed to be called. I mean, obviously there was, and how about that? Okay, can we point this out for 2 seconds?
Sure.
Before they went to battle to fight the Midianites, the first thing that showed readiness and possibly was needed spiritually to take place before they could go to battle was the breaking down of altars.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
I mean, they're struggling. Israel's struggling. The Midianites show up, right? And they come into this valley, and apparently there was a sea of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since I've studied on how many there were, so I'm not going to throw out even a guess, but we know it was more than 32,000 because they were outnumbered at that.
Yep.
right? But they, the text shows you that they're basically devouring the land, and right away the Israelites are like, crap, dude. We're not going to be able to be next to them. And they were struggling with them as neighbors for all kinds of reasons, but just that alone was like, dude.
Didn't Gideon go in and like take back Chop?
Take back Chop?
What
do you mean by that?
The region of Chop, the independent region of Chop.
We talk about Chad.
Yeah, Chaz or
whatever. Chad. What is Chad?
They had to change it.
No,
I
don't keep up with this crap.
That was a while ago, but yeah, it was Chaz, and then it was somebody copyrighted Chaz, so they had to change it to Chop.
Oh, jeez, of course they did. Of course they did.
So
That's
stupid.
what happened.
Yeah,
Oh.
but you see the silliness that's going on in the world right now, and you see how easily
We're at that
we're
valley.
at that exact spot,
We're-
and we need to take down the altars.
yeah.
And then last week we mentioned this because you see, last week there was a couple weeks ago during trumpets, there was the people that went and did that thing in DC, the return with Jonathan Cahn, and the next day, people on my Facebook feed are saying, "Look at these Masonic Christians doing fake Christian concerts and rituals in front of the monument and Egyptian obelisk in DC." Right? You have the wrong perspective.
I missed the whole point.
If you want to tear down an altar, you can't do it unless you're there, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole significance behind that event was DC is where the law is issued for our country,
Right.
and we're taking back the seat in the name of the Lord. And they went and prayed. They blew shofars. It was powerful. Go watch it. You can watch it online. It's a powerful thing. And when Christians are saying we want unity, but then they blast people like that, you're blind watchmen.
Shooting at the camp.
Yeah.
Again, if you're being led by the Spirit, then you'll know when to shoot, when to not, when to shout, when to not, how to discern who's coming, how to say, oh, it's Elisha, but he looks like Elijah, because I was the watchman, right?
Yeah.
Or to know if it's the enemy. Like, these are things you have to be able to discern, and you can't discern that if you're not moving with the Spirit. You talk about they say, oh, they're standing next to the altars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how they discuss it with that. But the thing is like we look at Scripture and it tells us that we're there to spiritually pull down strongholds.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you are told by the Spirit of God, go destroy the Georgia Guidestones, go destroy this, go destroy that, what are you going to accomplish even if you do destroy it?
Mm-hmm.
Spiritually, that altar is still present.
Right.
Even
You're
if you
looking at
destroy
a
it
physical.
physically.
You're looking at the physical.
And you need to look at the spiritual.
Yeah.
But if you're there to break down, so what is the hope of the message here? Because we've been hinting at it, but we didn't hit it, and you're like getting there. If we're at the valley, and we're looking at a need for repentance, we're looking at a need to be prepared for, accepting of, acknowledging the fact that if we want to go back up the hill instead of just crash in the valley, because we might be at a fork in the road moment right now. This might be a moment of, do you want to end in the valley? Do you want the valley to be the valley of Megiddo, or do you want to actually go up the hill?
Yeah.
We talked about Hezekiah.
Yeah, I was about to say, can you pull up Hezekiah, because that story is the main point. He's not a judge, but
that was something that we kept
it's
bringing
something
up.
that we brought up because it references the same type of thing.
Are you gonna finish my statements there while I do this?
Oh, I'm confused. I don't understand what you're saying to me.
Are you gonna finish what I was at? I was on a run, and then you're like, "Oh, Hezekiah, look that up."
Well, I
real
don't know.
quick."
I was thinking about Hezekiah. I don't know, man. I usually have a co-host. You're a guest.
Oh,
I usually have that. You
Fair
know, the
enough.
big old weird dude that talks all the time.
right. Well, he came in here just to tease the audience.
Twice. Yeah,
And
he just
leave.
came in here
I
to
just came in here to say hi.
make my camera look small.
You waiting for him to shout at the other
I'm
end or
waiting for
something?
him. Yeah, he's not. Yeah, I know he's running over on the other side of that door.
He might be at the campfire.
He was
He might be
In
hosting guests.
in here writing stuff about cattle prods and stuff.
But oh yeah. See, this is why I said he should have joined, because
I
we
know,
were talking about.
We were
he brings
all
up the
in
topic,
this.
and then I get
dude.
excited.
I
and
know.
remember
We
the
were all.
story, but-
Imagine all three of us in here.
Okay, so yeah, Shamgar with the goad, right? Which is where you just like to goad somebody, to prod them. The cool thing about that Shamgar, I mean, there's only like what was it, 1 to 3 verses on
Yeah.
Shamgar, But he took out how many people? I don't even know where that's at in Judges.
1,000, or I don't know. Was it 1,000?
It took out a stupid amount with an instrument that farmers use
He was a farmer.
to prod cattle, to prod ox, to keep plowing. Okay, so when I searched it, right, and there was many different images dating back to different time periods, and I tried to look into the ancient Israelite stuff. And I haven't done this in a minute, so bear with me. I don't have all the details at the top of my head. I do remember seeing a lot of different images, but most of them had kind of like a halberd effect to it, kind of like the old Scottish or old French or even Norwegian axes, where it was basically like a pole arm and then it had a curve. And the cool thing about that is, like, you know, they would be able to pull down horsemen and then, you know, joust as well. I mean, you could spear somebody, pull somebody down, whatever. We were talking about the differences of the possibilities of the curve. I'm not even 100% sure. I think it had something to do with the reins of the oxen, if you need to stop them or something like that, probably something like that. But anyways, you're looking at a long pole arm type of thing, and there's variances of the sizes of this thing. So this thing could have been anywhere from like 3 feet to like 6 feet, from what I remember. But either way, it's an instrument used for prodding the oxen to keep plowing. They get tired, right? And we were talking about that. It was really neat because this guy was not a warrior. And just like how David rejected the armor that he did not proof that was of the King Saul's, and he stuck with what he knew because he had faith in God, and this is what he had proven, right? And you look at that word proven, I mean, there's so much to that, but he stuck to what he knew, and he knew that if God's with him, that he will be successful. So he did what he could, and we were looking at that, and we were discussing about how it doesn't matter what your walk is with God in terms of, are you doing online ministries? Are you doing evangelism? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Whatever it is, whatever gifts and talents he's given you, he will use them through you to accomplish what he brings before you, even if it's something that makes zero sense to you.
But you don't have to go outside of your zone.
Right, outside of what you're called to do.
Yeah,
you don't have to be somebody that you're not.
He fits it.
Right.
So, yeah, this dude's not a warrior. He kills like
massive
amount of dudes.
Are you ready for a non-Ian moment?
What's that? You can't.
Where is Hezekiah? Yeah, I have an idea, but I don't. Ask the chat group. They'll love to correct me on this.
Okay. Well, I mean, by the time they correct you on it,
would it be too late? I know it's like what? It's not Chronicles. I mean, there might be.
We can just talk about it.
Well, I mean, all right, go for it then. It's a little bit of a bummer, but go ahead.
Well, keep looking. We're here.
Go ahead.
Let me show you.
Did somebody pull it up? Yeah, we'll
No,
go ahead and
I'll
just search
pull it up
real
real quick. Yeah.
I usually don't have to do this. I remember as you're doing it too much. Okay, so it is Kings and Chronicles. Okay, second book of Kings. I was thinking, okay. Yeah, so I had the right area, but that was going to take forever. What chapters, though?
Where do I find that at?
I don't know. Why don't you put, like, you search things weird.
I do. I just literally just wrote his name in here.
Yeah, it's apparent.
Yeah. 18. Second Kings 18.
Okay, end of
Yeah.
Second Kings. Okay.
Yeah, so
his life was extended.
yeah, his life was extended. He was
given more time.
Given reprieve. Yeah. God said you're going to die.
Yeah.
And he started to plead for his life and he repented. And it took a while. Like, I think it was like he did it for days, right? He was like pleading for days and asking for more time. And God saw his sincerity and granted him 15 years. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's cool because he shows him with the son. He actually takes the son back. This is one of like two only times that you have Joshua chapter 10 as well, where the sun stops.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you actually see the manipulation of time, and you could even argue space if you really want to. But you have the manipulation of time by God to show this message, and it was the sunshade went back 15 degrees to show that it was 15 years. And I'm going to try to. But anyways, how, you want to tie that in? You're going to explain this, or you're going to have me do it?
Well, what I'm trying to tie in here is, in order for us to get out of the pit here, we're at the bottom of the hill, and we're facing God's wrath, and it's looking bleak, and we've been hearing since really Passover that God desires repentance and for us to turn, right? Repentance is not just saying you're sorry, it's turning from your sin, turning away from it, doing other things. So when we were praying for normal to return, and God didn't bring normal, it's abnormal. And we're all upset about it. We're in the wilderness and we're complaining like the Israelites when God's changing up for our benefit, for our good. And his provisions are completely evident in our lives. Those of us that are paying attention, right? And then, we're here grumbling and complaining about God not, caring about us and how our world's going to look so crazy and everything's getting flipped upside down. I'm here to tell you that I think the world was upside down to begin with, and he's flipping it right side up. He's reordering it. Like we had that analogy that Roger gave us earlier, where he said, comfort makes you drive in the tracks, in the ruts in the road, because everyone's driven those ruts. And then when you come out of those ruts,
it's bumpy.
And no one likes it
because you don't have control.
And you're a little bit scared. So you go back into the ruts because it's comfort. Well, God's trying to reroute that road.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to come out of those for a little bit. But as you drive, you get smoother.
He's calling you out of the rut.
Yeah, the rut.
Out of your rut, which which is why that's a really fun analogy.
Well, I mean, look at there's a lot of things that aren't back, right? I mean, as far as life goes right now, at least in the United States, we have a lot of viewers outside the States, but life in the United States does not look the same as it did in January, man.
Was it 10 and not 15?
And I know it's 15 years.
No, that's what I thought too.
But repentance is required. And I believe that we legit can pray. And the thing is, a lot of people are like, well, we've seen all these signs that let us know what time we're in. These are patterns that repeat. God, these are cycles, and he's in control. If God can stop and set back time, he can do it again. And we need to pray for that, because according to God's will, he doesn't want, it's not his will that any should perish, right? And so we are on a great commission. We're to preach the gospel, heal the sick, bind up the brokenhearted, bring freedom to the captives, all these things that he told us to do. And maybe a lot of us haven't been doing it. Or at least it hasn't been our number one priority, and it should be, because we're in a battle and this is how we get victory. And he's reorganizing our lives, and hopefully we get it. We see it and we change. And then maybe we get a grace period or an extension.
Right? An extension.
An extension. Not that we won't ever go through the tribulation like it says we were going to.
Or that we'll actually.
I'm not real anxious to go through that stuff just to be right.
No.
You know what I mean? A lot of people are like, no, well, I've already prophesied that 2021, there's guillotines in the streets. Can't go back on that now.
No.
And that's pride. I'm not saying that anyone's ever said that, but I mean, that seems like something somebody would say. Right?
Yeah, I would not be surprised if we looked for it on Facebook that we'd find it.
Yeah, we'd probably find it. So, yeah, go ahead and read if you found it.
I mean, I found the parts, but it was the 10 degrees, and I was looking for what it said the 15 years. Hezekiah got super sick. And it was Isaiah, the son of Amos. It was the prophet Isaiah. And he had told him, he came to him and said, "Thus saith the Lord, set thine house in order, for thou shalt die and not live." And then he leaves. Right? Like, get your house ready. You're about to die. Right? And then he turned his face to the wall and prayed unto God. Right away, Hezekiah was real quick on that. And so you see him praying, and he was weeping. And before Isaiah was gone, even into the middle of the court, he was on his way leaving. He was out the door. The guy told him to turn again and go back and tell him, I will add unto thy days 15 years. There it is. So I thought it was 15. I just thought it was weird that it was 10 degrees for 15. I really thought it was 15 degrees to show 15 years. Every time I think of Hezekiah, I think of the tunnel. And then I think of that inscription that people use for proof. That's really cool. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'll have to show you that later. That's pretty tight. I had to do a save for that for NBC. Really neat stuff. You'd like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the point of that story was God heard him. He heard his cry for his repentance, and he saw the sincerity in his plea in his heart,
right?
And he granted him a grace. He extended his life.
Right.
I mean, that's all we're asking for, right? I mean, so that we can
the kingdom,
in order to further the kingdom,
prepare
right?
the body.
Yep, and prepare. And I think that that's what we should be praying about, because I feel like that's God's will. He's shown us this time after time.
Right.
He's patterned this for us to see the pattern,
right,
and repeat it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, at least the good ones. We don't want to repeat
Yeah.
the bad ones, but
right. No, we don't want to. No.
But I mean, we see this and we're like, okay, this should give us hope, and this should give us. So the cool thing about Joshua. So the perspective of Joshua is standing on the promise and conquering on the promises of God, right? So you have Moses that takes the children out of Egypt, and he provides for them in the wilderness, right? And it's through Moses that God provides. Well, then Joshua takes them into the land of promise, but he does so by teaching them to feed themselves and to fight for themselves, right? By standing on the word.
Yeah.
And David, when David comes up to Goliath, and Goliath's been taunting the Israelite camp for 40 days, and David shows up and he says, "Who is this Philistine that taunts our God?"
Yeah.
He says, "Is there not a word?" Because it's like everybody's waiting for God to do something or say something.
Right.
And he's like, God's already said.
Right.
So what are you doing?
Why are you waiting?
Why are you
Why are
waiting?
you waiting for the?
And I know a lot of
judge?
times I've been guilty of that too. You're waiting for something and you're like, wait a minute. He's already promised me if I do this, I get this. So now I've just been waiting for a new word. I just have to go and see what he said and do it. I mean, that's what the whole purpose of following Torah, the boundaries, the instructions. This is how you have an abundant life, or a life more abundant, right?
Right, more abundantly.
I mean, these are the things that you want to stay inside these, and if you go outside of this, you'll get hurt.
Yeah.
Or you could get hurt, right?
There's consequences.
There are consequences. And I mean, I think when we look at this Joshua generation that's coming, we have to be able to see the promise and take action. Like, it's already been given. We see the pattern. We see the result. We want that. We do it. That's the whole point, right? And when you get to that place of trust, that only comes because you abide.
Right.
Right. And when you
You're
start to, so when he shakes you up, when you get to this pit and he shakes everything up, and he's offering you this chance to come back out, it requires you to change your perspective, to change your routines, to get out of that place of comfort, to start the struggle all over again. And he doesn't want your story to suck.
Right.
So you will struggle, and you need to embrace it, because through struggle comes victory.
Yeah. Well, through the struggle, you've got the pruning. Like I said, John chapter 14 through 16 is really good if you're looking at the abiding, and you're talking about if you're of the branch, if you're grafted in, right, and if you're of the wild,
right,
he prunes you, right. What's up now?
This dude's taking over the chat room.
I saw that. Almost every time I look into the chat room, I'm like, I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think he does either.
But you've got the pruning, which, I mean, if you're a plant and you're getting pruned, that can't be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And the pruning is kind of like destroying of your altars, your idols, your distractions. You're having the chaff is getting beaten off of you. I mean, that's literally where you get the word tribulation. We talked about this. The etymology for the word tribulation.
Well, in the narrow road,
right,
the word that means narrow means pressed.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that is not a comfortable. You're not just chilling, walking through, or whatever. I mean, it's like, was it Walden that says it's like two rock paths that are, or two cliffs that are so close to each other,
that
so narrow that
on the other side. Yeah.
You're barely squeezing through there, and you got to climb and stuff. Which, I mean, a lot of times the walk feels like that when you're walking in the Spirit. But I mean, at the same time, like you said, it gains glory for God through your testimony, and there's so many reasons for that. I mean, you've got the glory for God, but it's not just so that God be like, I got the glory. I mean, that strengthens our faith. This is why faith is dead without works. You work it out, and as you're working it out, as you're doing these things, you're like, okay, God, what do you want me to do? I'm going to stand out in faith, guide me, show me, speak to me, etc. And you actually obey in these things. You gain faith as you see it happening, because it is you're consumed by it. You're abiding therein. I mean, you're walking down. You're like, dude, we had no water, and he smacked the rock, and water came out. I mean, you start to see these things, and that strengthens your faith, which is there to encourage you to keep going no matter what it looks like. I had something else I was going to go into, but I already forgot it.
Well, I think it's important to have times like we're doing during Sukkot here, where we can fellowship with believers and share testimonies with each other, do study with each other, and share experiences, because your testimony edifies me, right? I mean, so it's cool when we're all growing and we're all sharing what God's doing. It's encouraging to everyone, and it helps you. Like maybe there's something that we're praying for the same thing, and we see a victory, and you haven't seen it yet, but you see hope, right? I mean, it's good. It's not good to stay locked up, and not share things.
Stagnant water is
it's very important for fellowship to happen. That's why God gives us a lot of chances to do it, Hey, get together. Do not forsake the assembling together, right? Get together with your brothers and sisters, especially because things are about to get crazy and you need support.
Right, which comes with, struggle, discomfort, trust, faith, reprioritizing, pruning of your tree if you've got good fruit, right?
And your kids are your fruit too.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
So your kids, man. So if you've got dysfunction in your home, that's your number one priority.
Yeah,
because that's the number one covenant you've made. God has given you your home. Get your house in order. But guys, we're gonna take off. It's been super fun talking to you guys. Aaron will be back next week. We appreciate Ducky hanging out with us.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It's been awesome. He'll be back sometime to chat with us. But enjoy the rest of your guys' Sukkot. And God bless. We'll see you.